Vacation plans, long commute, weekend at the cabin. Wherever you end up this summer, the Connector Idaho Daily News helps keep you connected to Idaho, even while you're away. Get the top local stories every weekday morning in just a few minutes. That's the Connector Idaho Daily News. Listen on your podcast app.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. You're listening to Idaho Matters. 2 unvaccinated people in Pennsylvania have died from the measles. They are the first measles deaths reported in the United States this year, and the first in Pennsylvania in 35 years. And this comes as the number of cases nationwide just keeps climbing. The CDC has now confirmed more than 2,700 cases just this year. That's the most that we've seen in the United States since 1991. So where does this leave us? And with our kids back in school, is there more that families could be doing right now to protect themselves? It's Wednesday, which means it's time for our Dr. Roundtable with Dr. David Pate. He is the former CEO of St. Luke's Health System and the co-author of the book, Preparing for the Next Global Outbreak. Hi, Dr. Pate.
Hi, Gemma.
And folks, remember, if you do have a public health question, you can send us an email, idahomatters@boisestate.edu. So, Dr. Pate, first off, I feel like a broken record, but we have talked about the measles so much this last year, and now we have these 2 confirmed deaths in Pennsylvania. Does this change how concerned you are about where things are headed?
Well, no, in terms of, is it surprising? No. Is it concerning? Very. I'm just afraid at this point. We have had so many outbreaks for so long that we are getting to the point where measles is going to be endemic again. And I just never thought in a million years that would ever happen to us. But that is the force of sowing doubt in people's minds about vaccines. And now we are going to have to live with this for some period of time until enough children die or enough people come to their senses that people think, hey, we've been duped and now we got to get our kids vaccinated. This is just so terribly sad to see because in almost every case, this is preventable.
So, Dr. Pate, you used the word endemic. Does that mean that we are seeing this now as a significant public health problem in the country? I mean, not just where we've seen these outbreaks, like in South Carolina, in Texas, in Utah, these 2 deaths in Pennsylvania. I mean, what does endemic mean, and what does that look like in terms of public health?
Yeah, what it means is that it will now be an ongoing threat, like it was, back, 7 decades ago, 8 decades ago. That's how far we're regressing, that where measles is going to be an ongoing threat, something we're going to have to deal with on an ongoing basis, and that it is going to be a risk everywhere because we have such a mobile society. Sadly, I just read about a person who went into a neonatal intensive care unit for visitation, and that person came down with measles right afterwards, and so may have exposed some of our most vulnerable children. It wasn't here in Idaho, but it may have exposed them to measles. And we're going to be seeing exposures on airplanes, in schools, in various places like we used to. And it's just such an avoidable problem. It is such an unnecessary a challenge to people's health.
So, Dr. Pate, what does this mean for people who are vaccinated. In terms of how concerned do people need to be if they're vaccinated? Because we've talked about herd immunity, right, where we need to be at a certain percentage mark. So, is there a concern for folks who are vaccinated?
Not if they are not immune compromised. So
Okay.
if they don't have an underlying immune compromising condition, but there are a lot of people that do. Then if you're healthy and you have a healthy immune system and you have gotten both doses of the MMR, then you need not worry. I am not aware of a single case of anyone who has been vaccinated who got um, who died from it. You know, if you're fully vaccinated, you've got about a 3% chance you could actually get a mild case of measles still. But I'm not aware of any of those individuals that have ever required hospitalization or died. So it is outstanding protection and it's lifelong protection. So, for example, for myself, I don't worry about measles. But who I do worry about measles for are pregnant women who are not fully vaccinated. I worry about those children who are too young to have been fully vaccinated. And they are some of the people that will have the highest risk for future complications from measles. I think that in a day when it seems like people only care about themselves. And I know that's not true because all the people I interact with are very compassionate, empathetic
Hmm.
people. So I know that this is the minority of the people that just really don't care about others. But even if you're not concerned for yourself, this is a gift for people who are immunocompromised, people who, because of their immunocompromising condition, they can't get the MMR vaccine because it would be that itself would be a threat to them and to children who are not old enough to be vaccinated and to those pregnant mothers. We should do this. Let's protect our neighbors as well as protect yourself.
And Dr. Pate, we have talked before about the possibility of the United States losing its measles elimination status, which I believe we got back in 2000. How close are we to that actually happening? And what would it mean if we lose that status?
Well, I think it's all but certain that we will lose it. That determination, I'm not sure of the exact date that the Pan American Health Organization is meeting to review all of our data, but I believe it is very soon. And frankly, I will be shocked if we don't lose our measles elimination, our measles elimination
Hmm.
status, which you are correct. We got back in 2000. And then what that means is that if we choose to remain a member of the Pan American Health Organization, which I certainly hope we do, then it means we are required to come up with a plan for how to address this. And the first part of that plan, I would hope, is that people at the highest levels of our government don't go around saying false information, saying that the MMR vaccine is lethal. I have no idea what they're talking about. And I was appreciative that after being pressed on this several times, Dr. Oz, the head of the in the administration, came out and
Hmm.
said, "No, it's not a lethal vaccine." And but we've got to stop spreading disinformation and sowing doubt about this vaccine. We have used it for so many decades. We've had hundreds of millions of people vaccinated. We know it's a safe vaccine. And for those that continue to propagate this myth about autism, Study after study after study has refuted that. It is a very safe vaccine, and it is one of our most effective vaccines. And there is no need to put your children at risk of hospitalization, of developing inflammation of the brain, in developing a long term neurologic disease, of death. These are not things that are necessary for you to expose your children to.
So, in other medical news, Dr. Pate, it seems like every few days now we are hearing about another food recall. This time there was one with alfalfa sprouts that's been linked to E. coli and salmonella that sickened about 55 people in 15 states. So, here's my question. Are we actually seeing more food recalls and foodborne illness outbreaks right now, or does it just feel that way because we're just hearing about them more often?
I think that is the question, and I don't know the answer yet. And I'm not sure we're going to get the answer very easily because one of the government's tracking systems that helps us to answer that question was defunded. So we're at a real disadvantage. I have the impression that it is possible we're seeing more. And I say that in large part due to the fact that we do know that this cyclospora outbreak is the largest one we've ever had.
Mm.
And so certainly that particular one is the largest outbreak of that we've ever had. What I can't tell you is about putting all these others in perspectives because we have systems to track that. We then look back in retrospect with the data. We can compare it to prior years and see. And I just don't know that we're going to have that data because they discontinued that funding and staffing. But certainly, because of how big the cyclospora outbreak was, I think that has led to more media coverage of other outbreaks that maybe people wouldn't have paid attention to in the past. So it may seem like we're having more. I'm not sure yet what is the answer to your question, but that's the right question.
So, for the rest of us, it's obviously impossible to track every recall, right, Dr. Pate? Because it just seems like there's one every other day. So, with all of that said, what is the best way to protect ourselves? I mean, are there certain foods, certain things like that we should be cautious of right now? Because I feel like every time I go to the grocery store, I'm like, okay, is there something that's been recalled? And I'm being a bit facetious, but I do think about it now when I walk into a grocery store, and I haven't ever really done that before.
Oh, yes. And I've got a number of friends that are going through the same thing and call me and say, oh, what about these blueberries sitting in my refrigerator? Or what about this and that? And so, I think two things. One, in our own personal approach to this, I think the thing is no, you don't need to be worried, but you probably need to be cautious, and that means uh, when you do purchase produce, because most of these outbreaks have been associated with various forms of fresh produce. So one is I like the convenience of bagged lettuce and salad mixes and all because I hate to go through. I'm not very patient, and so I hate to go through all that. But if you're the
Mm.
kind of person that you don't mind that, you're going to probably be better off if you buy the fresh and not the bagged products. That might help you a little bit. The second thing is, regardless of what you're buying, if the produce or fruit or whatever it is you're eating is amenable to being washed thoroughly, do so. And maybe not be as complacent as we might have been in the past. Thoroughly wash it. If it's like a head of lettuce, make sure you're washing thoroughly in between the leaves and of the lettuce and so forth. If there's a fruit that has a more firm exterior, you can even use a fruit cleaning brush to, give them a little scrub. But for most of these issues, most of them will not be a problem if the produce is thoroughly washed. So that's your best defense. On a national level, we need to restore this tracking system. We need to probably be more, we need to ramp up the staff so that we can do inspections and take enforcement actions. This latest outbreak with the alfalfa sprouts, that company was in trouble last year. And so, why are we not taking, and maybe they are and just haven't told us, but why aren't we taking a more strong approach to enforcing proper conditions there? And I think we need to do more inspections of other places to make sure that those produce operations have the proper infection control practices in place, and so those are the two things.
And remember, folks, if you have public health questions, send us an email at idahomatters@boisestate.edu. And speaking of questions, we are going to spend our last segment with you today, Dr. Pate, answering quite a few of these listener questions that we got. So Denise wrote in and she says, I am leaving the country September 10th for 7 weeks. I am up to date on COVID vaccines and I want to get vaccinated before I leave. So should I consider getting last year's COVID vaccine if I cannot get the newest one for 2027? How effective would that be?
Yeah, so this is a tough problem. And it's a little bit difficult for me to answer because I wish I knew more details, including like where you're going. But here's what I would say. Yes, it would be very helpful for you to be vaccinated. Normally, we would want you to do that roughly about 10 days before you took your trip because with international flights, you're going to be exposed and in airports. The problem is people don't have the new 26, 27 formulation of the COVID vaccine yet. I've checked around to a number of pharmacies and no one has it. Normally we would have it by this time of the year, but things got all out of whack with the disbandment of the advisory committee of the CDC. And so no one has a good timeline of when we're going to have the vaccine. Most of the sources I've checked with believe we will have it next month, but it doesn't sound like we're going to have it in time for your trip. Good idea about maybe taking last year's formulation. In fact, there are different variants circulating in other parts of the world. And again, I'm not sure where you're going, which led the World Health Organization to recommend using the LP8.1 variant, whereas in the United States, what we have been seeing has been XFG. So that would be the vaccine you would get in this new dose. But last year's dose was the LP8.1. So that would work. The problem is I'm not sure you're going to be able to find it anywhere. But yes, I would check around to local pharmacies, and I think that would be a good plan. Just go ahead and see if they still have it. If they do, get that vaccine. Now, if they don't, then you need to take all the kinds of precautions we talked about before, but I won't take time right now to go through. And then you have the advantage whenever you get to where you're going, hopefully you're going to one of the countries that will have this already widely available, and you can just go ahead and get vaccinated there.
So Dr. Pate, we have quite a few questions about COVID, about the vaccine in particular. So Stephen writes in and he says, can Dr. Pate provide an update on the status of the latest COVID vaccine and whether it is able to protect against the more recent variants? Now, with that said, Dr. Pate, I know you just said we don't have a lot of information. I happened to be at my pharmacy yesterday. It's an Albertson branded pharmacy, just so people, know that. And I was told that they just got approval for the COVID vaccine, and they said they're hoping to get it in the next few weeks. I don't know what that really means, Dr. Pate, but I'm wondering too if, when Stephen asked about, an update on the latest COVID vaccine, what does that mean when the pharmacy tells you something like that?
Well, yeah, and I've talked to a few pharmacies, and they're frankly everybody's confused. And I think there's some pharmacies I talk to, and they think, well, we're waiting for FDA approval. Well, no, you're not. We've got that.
Mhm.
What I think they're talking about in approvals, they're waiting for the CDC's approval. I'm not sure whether we're getting that or not, and so that is going to have some uh, payment implications, coverage implications. Probably not for most, because the American Association of Health Plans said they're just going to go ahead and cover it until all this nonsense gets sorted out. So, but what I think what they're waiting for is for the distributors to ship it, and
Mm.
I have seen plans. Novavax made their plans public. They are going to ship 35% of their stock by September 30th. So that
Oh,
is going to be later than last year. I have not seen the distribution dates for Moderna and Pfizer, but I am of the sense, just as you were told at Albertsons, I think we're looking at several weeks.
okay. So, Dr. Pate, Ray Wright wrote in and he said, any update on whether we'll have a new COVID vaccine soon for seniors with health issues? If not, what would be your advice, Dr. Pate, for that group of people? Because it sounds like where it's going to be maybe, end of September, early October, if we're lucky.
Yeah, I believe so. I think for seniors, it's very important that we do maintain our vaccinations and boosters. Um, I'm certainly going to get mine when it is available. In the meantime, you need to, as we talked about on the last show, we are seeing a significant uptick in COVID cases, the wastewater data. Um, and so use your precautions, especially according to how your health is and all. And so all those things that we talked about before are still important. The one thing that has changed is that I think it was in June, the FDA did approve the first post exposure prophylaxis for COVID, a drug called encitravir, that we can use if, for example, if your spouse got infected, or you've got somebody else in your household got infected. This is a drug that you could start on. Just talk to your doctor, and it has shown benefit to reducing your chances of getting infected in your household. But
Hmm.
otherwise, just use your regular protections, your cautions, until that vaccine comes out. I'm confident it's coming. I just can't tell you when. And then go get it. And then similarly, we will tell you when we see the flu activity that would justify going ahead and getting your flu shot. Do not get your flu shot yet. It won't last you long enough.
Okay, Dr. Pate, I have about a little under 2 minutes left with you, and I do want to talk about the flu shot and what you just said, because every time I've gone into my pharmacy in the last week or two, they've told me we've got the flu shot if you want to get it, and I've seen people, lots of people, getting their flu shot, and I know people are just trying to do the right thing, but can you quickly explain in the last 2 minutes that we have, why we should be waiting to get that flu vaccine even though it's available right now?
Yeah, so that is the problem. It gets distributed early. And so pharmacies start marketing it and putting up signs and say, come in and get your flu shot. And but the problem is the flu vaccine is you're going to lose perhaps about 7% of your protection every month. In other words, the protection wanes with time. And it wanes faster with the influenza vaccine than most other vaccines. And so while the vaccine is very helpful, we need to time it, because if you get it now, in here at the end of April, but we don't see influenza till the end of November, which is possible, now you would have 3 months of waning protection, which means that it's probably not going to last you all the way through the flu season, which can certainly go, almost always does go well into March, and not infrequently into April and May. And so that's why I say, listen to the show. We will tell you when we see the uptick in influenza cases, because it usually, once we see that uptick, it does increase significantly. But it could be as early as next month. It could be as late as December. And so we'll watch. When we start seeing that, we'll tell you, okay, go get your flu shot. And that way you will have the most protection for the largest part of the flu season.
All right. Well, as always, Dr. Pate, we so appreciate you. We've been talking with Dr. David Pate, former CEO of St. Luke's Health System and the co-author of the book, Preparing for the Next Global Outbreak. If you have public health questions for Dr. Pate, send us an email, idahomatters@boisestate.edu. You've been listening to the Idaho Matters podcast from Boise State Public Radio. To stay in touch, you can find quick Idaho daily news every morning when you subscribe to the Connector podcast. Just by listening, you're helping to support public radio right here in Idaho. And I want to say a big thank you for that.